Okay, so hi Jackie. I suppose, I mean, is it okay to call you Jackie, or would you rather me prefer to you as Britney Spears? I mean, is it either or?
Either of those is fine, but the default position at the moment is Jackie Weaver.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that people have stopped calling me Jackie almost altogether, apart from my husband. He still calls me Jackie. Everybody else calls me Jackie Weaver.
You've
One
not
word.
had any, not any had any Britney shouts in the streets or anything?
One or two.
Well,
No,
I guess.
in ordinary conversation, now actually call me Jackie Weaver.
Okay. Well, full name you're referred to as. Oh, brilliant. Well, I guess first things first, how have you, I guess, been doing, with all this COVID stuff and, it yesterday sort of getting the restrictions added, it just seems never ending. I mean, how have you been coping with it all?
I mean, part of the challenge for me is my job is in turn to advise other people. So I've got, straight away 234, not all of them at once, parish councils now saying, what's changed? What's changed for us? And of course, nothing really has changed for them. They still can't hold virtual meetings. But now they do have to kind of go back to that position where you need to think about, do I really need to hold this meeting at all? And, make it as secure, socially distant, blah, 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 as you can.
Mhm.
But I can't be the only person who just can't make any sense of it. I just
Yeah.
don't get it. I don't get why, on the one hand, somebody just lost their job over having been to a party. Boris is saying, go to Christmas parties and enjoy yourself. But at the same time, we're kind of in this virtual lockdown where we're kind of not going to party. I don't know what the rules are. I'm very
Yeah.
much a black and white girl.
Well, yeah, it's like go to Christmas parties, but work from home was kind of
Yeah,
the message, which was a bit strange.
work from home, but go to the party.
Yeah, it's just a bit bizarre. But I mean, how did you find? What's your opinion on this potential, the words that Boris is using, party that was supposedly going on in number 10? I mean, someone's resigned from their position over it? I mean, how do you feel about it all?
Well, it's kind of interesting in lots of different ways. I mean, first of all, I didn't realise the party was not this year, it was last year.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's the first thing that, I don't think comes across very, very carefully. And I guess that we're trying to kind of understand what happened. Well, first of all, we don't know whether it's a party or not a party.
Mhm.
And we have the sainted Laura Kunsberg telling us that this should really bring about the defeat of the government. I'm really not sure why. And if it wasn't for, in many ways, the BBC running around telling us that the world has come to an end, I'm not sure ordinary people would have made a great deal out of it. I mean,
Mhm.
that government lies to you, and I'm not talking about a conservative government or anything else government, but this government is like, no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you think we need like a almost like a political reform, a revolution, almost like in terms of it just seems that I don't know, like the trust is just not there anymore. I don't think whoever's in power, like, it almost is almost like there's been too much damage has been done over the years.
I mean, I guess that ever the pragmatist, my view is look at what you can change rather than, why sit about bitching about something you can't change. So that I'm not one kind of promoting go overthrow government, make up the rules out and stuff like that. But what I do focus on is what can I control? What can I have an influence over? And I guess that's why I feel very passionate about local government,
Mhm.
particularly at town and parish council level. I'm not talking about principal authorities. I think you begin to get into, we do, you get into the political sphere again there. But in your local communities, you can affect change. So don't try and affect change in your community by tackling government. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And how did you get started in your local government? I mean, how did that all start for you?
Well, I think, like a lot of people, I got involved in my local council because I wanted to change something. I mean, I think it's quite interesting that often we talk about apathy in local councils. And in a way, when everything is okay, I mean, I won't even say good, but if everything's okay, I think that's what you get, apathy. Because in a way, people have to feel uncomfortable before they want to make change. You know, I mean, if you're sitting there perfectly comfortable in front of the fire, reading a book, watching the telly, glass of wine beside you, you know, why would you move? You move because you're uncomfortable, because your glass is empty, because your feet got too hot. You know, something like that. That's what makes you move, and that was what moved me into democracy. There was something I felt that wasn't right local, and I wanted to change it.
Yeah. And I suppose over this last year, it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you. I mean, it's coming up to a year now, isn't it? Since you sort of you've become a viral sensation. I mean, yeah, nearly a year.
Well, I mean, there's two things. The anniversary of the meeting is coming up. But it didn't actually go viral until February of the following year. So, I mean, that in itself was kind of really weird because by the time it went viral, I'd totally forgotten about the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I suppose I mean, in terms of the background of the infamous Handforth Parish Council video, I mean, did you know what you were going into?
Yes and no. That council had difficulties. I mean, that's as good a word as any. Issues, any of the words that you like, for literally years.
Yeah.
And I knew that there had been an ongoing situation there for over 6 months. So when my organisation, Chalk, was asked to field someone to facilitate the meeting, I wouldn't ask one of the team to go. That was why I was there. So I knew it would be challenging, but I mean, in all my 63 years, I've never seen anybody behave that badly.
No, it was just bizarre in terms of you know, I think we, you know, you can watch a fragment of the Vicar of Dibley and you kind of you know see the sort of small village council there is there and the characters there, but it was almost like this was a real version of some kind of Vicar of Dibley scene. You know, there were some people that questioned if it was real when it first came up.
Well, that's quite interesting because the lovely comedian, I think it was Izzy Sutty, did my podcast with me, and she was saying that she'd had an idea long before this for a script, you know, a comedy sketch based around a parish council. And as she was kind of tossing around ideas and putting them together, she thought, no, it's just not believable, you know. And then she said she watched the video weeks, months later, and she said, but you couldn't have written that. I mean, if you put that forward as a story, then it would have been, no, I mean, that's really over the top. So kind of all those elements that came together that kind of made it something memorable, you wouldn't, as they say in that phrase, you couldn't have made it up.
Yeah, it was just so many different characters, wasn't there? And they all just kind of almost, in a strange way, complemented each other into this, you know, bizarre video that we got. It was just everyone's pushing each other's buttons in certain ways, you know, and you know, it was just the perfect combination of what that video needed to be. The perfect people were in it.
And if you realise that it wasn't edited, I think that kind of makes it even more surprising. Because you could have, you know, over a much longer video, you might have snatched those bits and kind of, I don't know how you do it, you know, you could stuck them together kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that would have been one thing, but it wasn't. That was in real time. So, you know, it is that sense of, you know, we could not make it up.
Yeah. And I suppose, so I guess were you brought in because there'd been a reluctancy to have a meeting and you were kind of there to make sure this meeting did take place? Was that
Not
purpose?
exactly. I mean, we have started kind of like 4 months before when the chairman, Brian Tolver, I can't remember the word is, suspended the clerk unilaterally, just took the decision to do it. And then sent out an email to councillors saying, well, the logical thing to do now is for me to become clerk. And he then declared that he was now chairman and clerk. And so you have the 3 councillors on one side and the 3 councillors on the other. So the 3 councillors on the other side wanted to hold a meeting. So they asked the clerk to call a meeting, wouldn't call one. So they wait the prescribed number of days, and then ask the chairman to call a meeting. He will call one. So then you have the option under the Local Government Act 1972, Schedule 12, for 2 councillors to call for a meeting, which they did. But now they have no clerk, no access, because now we were doing virtual meetings, no access to the Zoom account, etc. So no physical way of holding this meeting. And Cheshire Association of Local Councils, we are here to support local councils. So they approached us and said, can you find someone to facilitate this meeting for us? So that was why I was there. And the only point of my being there was literally to facilitate the meeting going ahead.
Yeah. And I mean, did you, I mean, obviously you said you knew kind of what you were going into, but did you ever expect, I guess, the frustration that you were there? Did you think you were going to get that challenge from the chairman and the vice chairman, just the fact that you were in the meeting?
No, I expected some unpleasantness, and what I assumed they'd do, since all the way along, their objectives seemed to be to not hold a meeting. That seemed to be the only thing they wanted to do, just not hold a meeting. So thinking about, well, what would I do in that situation? Follow, because they're very much following the rules. How do we follow the rules to enable us to stop this meeting going ahead? And if the chairman had simply started the meeting and then put to the vote that they closed the meeting, there would have been nothing I could have done about that. But instead, he insists on making this presentation, this speech, saying that the meeting was invalid. So every time he goes down that route, I cut him off because it's not part of the agenda.
Yeah, absolutely.
I said, are you going to start this meeting, Chairman? Shall we start this meeting? And he goes back to it again. And every time he does it, I cut him off because I say, oh, we're going to start the agenda. And if at any time he just started the agenda, there would have been nothing I could have done. Put to the vote that he closed the meeting would be closed.
Yeah, I think what I actually discovered recently was on YouTube. You can actually kind of watch. I think on YouTube it's called Handforth Paris Council, the prequel, which is the meeting you had just before the one that went viral.
No,
and that's almost a hidden gem in itself, where there is some extreme moments in that as well. Again, you're with the same characters, you are met straight away with hostility. Some people kind of think, well, why was he kicked out of the first meeting? But you can kind of go, well, look, you can see now it's, it's uploaded. You can see the first meeting as well, where it was the same problem from the same people.
And wouldn't you have thought, in between one meeting and the next, you might have regrouped and thought, that didn't work. What's plan B? But no, you do exactly the same thing again. Well, guess what? Same thing happens.
Yeah. And I guess there was obviously threats of legal action and things like that. Do you think that worried some of the members? I didn't know how long that was going on for, but talks of subpoenas and things like that. You could tell there was some, I think there was members of the public or members on the council that were a bit concerned of those threats being thrown out there.
Oh, Aled has pursued them.
Okay.
Pursued them before that meeting, and he has pursued them since that meeting. But they go nowhere. My last one was literally 3 weeks ago. Now, bearing in mind, as we started, this was nearly 12 months ago. He still hasn't let go.
He still hasn't let go.
No longer a councillor.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, are you quite happy how the council of Handforth has changed since then? Because there's been some resignations, and are you content with how it's looking now?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not, I'm not the person who decides what a council should look like.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not like Christmas. But I feel really happy for Handforth that they now have got the kind of recognition that they deserved. The 3 councillors and then new councillors that are sticking in there and making it work. And I was over in Handforth 2 weeks ago, switching on their Christmas lights.
Oh, amazing.
And it was a terrific afternoon. It was, you really saw the community come together. As we walked around, and we were judging the best kept window kind of thing. And as you walked round, you could see the interaction between the people and the councillors, and it was really a pleasure to watch.
And I suppose since that meeting, have you ever had an explanation, an apology from some of the people that that were hostile to you? I guess that's an important thing to ask people that may have watched it back and reconsidered, you know, their actions at maybe heat of the moment. Have you ever had a sort of explanation or apology?
No, I mean, in
Okay.
fact, quite the opposite. They still feel absolutely, utterly aggrieved.
Wow. Yeah. Even just watching that, it's just so amazing, like watching that back, and especially Mr. Brereton, who you can see does, you know, there is anger. It's the only way you can describe it is pure anger and outburst on screen, and you think you watching that back, you'd be embarrassed and would want to apologise to Handforth, to yourself or Handforth, or the committee members, but there's just been this relentless fight in it still.
The chairman did apologise to the people of Handforth. He did his own YouTube video about a month later. And I did watch it thinking, you know, okay, maybe I've missed something, you know, maybe there is a different way. I mean, I try to be open.
Of course, yeah.
You know, and, you know, I'm sure I was once wrong. But I do, you know, I do look, I do reflect, you know, is there something I missed? Was I really focused on one thing and I've missed something, you know, elsewhere? So I listened to his, you know, 15-minute explanation, and it was as if I was the one talking. Mm. It's like, how can you see, or how can you line all of those things up and come to a different conclusion? You know? And his conclusion was that he was desperately sorry for his actions, but he had been not bullied, but hounded and frustrated, so much so that he lost his patience.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and in fact, you know, as I say, what you see in that video is real time. Mm-hmm. There's nothing happened before it was recorded. You know? So he must have a very low threshold. There's like about a minute, no, 2 minutes, because it starts with something like, you know how you've got on your screen your little camera, your time. Mm-hmm. So it's 3 minutes past 7, Chairman. Would you like to start? It's not 7 o'clock yet. Okay. Yeah. Because that, you know, that's kind of sets the tone. So okay, we're going to argue from the beginning. So I just back off from that. You know, if your time is different from, if your time reality is different from mine, that's okay. We'll go with yours. Mm-hmm. You know, but that was the only thing that was the only exchange, and even that is still on recording.
I suppose during it all happening, was there ever a moment where you thought, maybe even both, that you thought to yourself, one, what have I got myself into with these, this council, or was it just you were passionate? No, like this is a problem and I want to help.
I think when you're in a situation like that, particularly when you're not sure how other people are going to react, you're so busy, kind of. I suppose it's the closest I come to playing chess. I'm rubbish at chess. I'm rubbish at drafts. It's the closest you come to chess because you're trying to second guess where they're going to go next. So you really haven't got time to think about what just happened. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I suppose the aftermath. I mean, let's talk about the aftermath of it all. I mean, how did you first sort of come about that this had just exploded into this viral video that the whole country was just going crazy about?
Well, first of all, you can never underestimate how little I know about social media. I know a lot more now.
Yeah.
But 10 months ago, I did in fact have a Twitter account with about 5 followers, which I felt I should use for work more. I never really understood why you would sit there saying, I'm in a meeting, here's a picture of it. You know, I just didn't get kind of that. I'm not sure I get it now, but I kind of use it a little bit more now. And a colleague of mine texted me, I think on Thursday night, saying, trending number 3 in the country. And I thought, you know, you did that thing where either you don't hear properly or you don't understand. So you know the laugh where you go,
yeah.
It's not quite a laugh, but it's kind of like, I don't really know, moving on. And so, you know, kind of texted briefly around that and another thought. And then a couple of hours later, they said, you know, kind of like, wow, excitement, you're trending number 1. So I thought, well, they clearly feel this is important. So I in turn forwarded a text on to my son and said, should I be you worried about this? He said, no, don't worry, Mum, it will be a mistake. So I just said, yeah, okay, and never gave it another thought. Till the following day when we would come down, in the morning, and my phone is full of messages because my telephone number, because of the day job, is on my website, not my
Right.
child website. And there is literally a queue of cars and people in vans outside the house.
Wow.
I honestly thought my husband had murdered somebody.
Wow, that's an extreme. But yeah, I mean, I guess just going to bed the
But
night
it wasn't as
before.
likely as what actually happened.
Let's hope not. But yeah, I mean, I guess, how was it? Was it overwhelming? I guess that first day, because I mean, it was literally news stations, it was quiz shows, panel shows, everywhere on social media. I mean, that first day, was it just a bit like, was it hard to take in what was going on?
Oh, it was and is incredibly hard to take it in. And I suppose there's two things that strike me. One is I kind of feel I'm really well grounded because I still have and to do a day job. So that there's a lot of people that know me as Jackie. And our relationship is based around work. And there's a lot that ties us together through that. And I do a lot of training, for example, in my job for counsellors and clerks. So that kind of keeps me very grounded. But the other thing is, I guess it's really hard to convey to somebody how busy I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, for example, just recently, I mean, and it almost hasn't let up at all. So that on Monday night, I was in Elstree doing the recording of the Big Fat Quiz with Jimmy Carr.
Amazing.
And I'm standing there, waiting in the wings, waiting to go on in front of a live audience. The show wasn't live, but and somebody said to me, "Aren't you really nervous?" And I said, "You just don't have time to think about it. I mean, if you thought about it, you would run. I mean, because nothing prepares you for that. I mean, I don't have, I've not had lessons in anything. I've not been, I don't do amateur dramatics. Nothing prepares you for that moment where you're kind of juggling lights, cameras, script you've got, media people that you've seen on the telly, a live audience, and there look like thousands of them. Awful lot of people, a lot of noise. This is a comedy show, so what people say is often, although there is a script, they often just go totally off script.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like how you're going to react to it. Now, as you're standing there for perhaps 3 or 4 minutes waiting to go on, if you let any of that start to get into your head, you couldn't do it.
Yeah, you'd freeze.
Well, yeah. And it's kind of, I suppose I'm quite good at clearing my mind. Although I often say I'm very poor at living in the moment. I'm always living for the next moment. And I suppose that's what really kind of gets me through, is that I'm not concentrating on where I am at this moment and actually the reality of what's round about me. I've already started to think about the next thing.
Mm-hmm. And is it one of those things where, like, sort of after you kind of like, I've just done Big Fat Quiz of the Year with Jimmy Carr? Is it something you sort of like have the realization after that, or was it before?
It doesn't come because, again, the next thing you've got to think of is, right, now back to the hotel. Now, what time I've got to get the train in the morning? Now I've got to make sure I get back for that meeting, and then that meeting's finished. I've got this meeting to do.
Right.
It's constantly driven forward.
Yeah.
And I did actually say to my husband 2 or 3 months ago, when this is over and I am forgotten, which I will be, remind me I had a really good time, because you absolutely don't have time to appreciate what's happening to you.
Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, was it, although the aftermath of the meeting wasn't the most one of the best Handforth's moments, I mean, were you quite pleased to see, I guess, the the aftermath of that, I think in the next Zoom meeting following the viral one meeting, I know you get the people in there just to kind of see if so and so is going to be in there, but you did have a lot of the local community go into that meeting as well to view it and see what was going on with their town.
There's a lot to unpick there. I mean, first of all, I was terrified that actually it would give a very negative picture of the sector. You know, I was really, you know, my kind of perception of the press was quite cynical. That, you know, only ever look for a bad story, they're just going to make this into the worst possible thing, etc. My experience has been quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So although there is definitely still play the clip, people still laugh at it because frankly some of it is quite funny. But quickly you're able to move on, or able to move them on to the more positive things about, you know, how actually that is very unusual, and how that council has gone from strength to strength, and actually it took shining a light on it to actually bring about that change. So yeah, I started from being very anxious about it, but you know, 2 or 3 weeks in, I could see that actually people were extremely kind, and allowed me, as I say, to move the narrative away from the negative into the positive. Handforth asked me if I would clerk or support the clerk in clerking the next council meeting, and I said no, because I felt that my presence there would not be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And that first meeting after the one that went viral was, I think it was a bit of a farce. But the one after, when, you know, they began to better understand how to manage their own Zoom sessions, and you saw more local people there, not just bystanders,
Mm-hmm.
then it really started to, you know, you could see that the community was behind the council.
Mm-hmm.
You could see that it was really trying to move forward.
Yeah, and I guess looking at the positive side of that, you know, has it been quite refreshing? Because I have seen some young people have sort of wanted to find out more about their local councils now, rather than just thinking it's, you know, Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer, that they are looking into more local aspects of it, and it has shone a light on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you might think you see a lot of them in the press and on TV, etc., and on radio, but you don't see a half of what I do. So what I get on the back of those media things is lots of invitations to other kinds of groups. So people who, I don't know, clerks to sixth form colleges, because they're all silo, clerks to academies, clerks to governors, Open University I'm doing some stuff with at their conference, student unions, colleges, schools, nursing college, all sorts of people who have an interest in either governance, you know, how do we make our own internal rules better so they support us better, or people who are thinking, well, yeah, I'd be a little bit interested in knowing more about these local councils that we talk about. And there's definitely a real lack of, the starting point of what people understand about local councils is frightening. So they really don't understand that you have that very local form of government, and you can get involved in it, and you can actually affect change in your local area. And I guess the other thing is political parties who are interested in encouraging greater diversity, so younger people and women to stand, etc. They kind of have me along. And again, it's because of that kind of, you know, almost celebrity status that makes people want to come along, but having got them, then you can talk to them about things that you think are interesting. Tell them a little bit about the story, the journey. People like journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can talk to them about things that are important to you. So my kind of approach to this is that if you're interested in changing the world, then, you know, you can knock your head against the you know, the national politics door for as long as you like, and I don't think you're going to make any difference. Or in the alternative, why don't you start local? And if we all did something locally, boy, could we make a change. But even if that's not your ultimate ambition, it's a really good grounding for you to move forward with a well-rounded political career, so you do understand what else is there apart from your MPs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I suppose have you had like lots of really nice sort of feedback from the video that's happened, you know, the viral video? I mean, have you had like letters or emails just like from young people, people older? Yeah.
Inundated. I mean, one of the things that surprised me at first was how many, it tended to be women, but how many people got in touch to say, I'm not involved with a town or parish council, but what I saw in that meeting is what happens in our organisation regularly. So it wasn't just local authorities, this was anywhere where you have a board or a committee or a group where they come together to make decisions. And often, there are voices in that group that don't get heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, how did your book come about? Because I mean, you know, that's a recent book that's come out, your first book, and you have the authority here. I mean, was that something you always wanted to do, or was it kind of did you get approached and things like, was it a bit of both? You know,
I can't say I never thought of writing a book.
no.
Do people do that? I mean, like ordinary people. I mean, not like authors.
Well, I guess like you get people that write their memoirs and put it up and stuff, and some people feel like they've got their own story to tell and things like that. But I mean, you sound like you've got lots of stories to tell beforehand, you know, busy life.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought for one moment anybody else would be interested in it.
You never know.
I know my life. I do know.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you yours has been far more interesting than mine. It was one of those things that I guess that I suppose age has something to do with it as well. So that I'm not secret to the fact I'm 63, and I kind of approached this with, this will only last for a very short period of time. Just say yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's only one thing I said no to, unless there's been a direct clash, and I just simply can't do it. So I kind of said yes to everything. So when somebody approached me and said, would you like to write a book? I thought, well, yeah, okay. And they said, what would you like to write a book about? And I thought, I have no idea. I thought, well, I could write a book about parish councils. And I thought, well, I guess the objective is probably to sell more than 6 copies. And if you write a book about parish councils, 6 would probably be ambitious. And I thought, well, what else would I like to write about? And I guess that my husband and I, both being similar age, often have that moment where you're just going to bed at night and you reflect on the day, and you think, something that just seems to be missing from people these days is common sense.
Yeah.
Those things where you think it's bleeding obvious. Somebody's wringing their hands about what you do. Bleeding obvious what you do. Or somebody does something and go, wow, who would have thought that would have happened? And I think everybody would have thought that would have happened. Why didn't you think it? So I thought, well, maybe there's merit there in kind of like a little book of common sense. Perhaps there are some things that, I guess that I thought of it as the book that book full of things that you wish your mother had said to you. Mine certainly wouldn't have done. Or if she did say them to you, you wish you'd listened. Because I hope that's what comes across through the book. I'm not sort of saying, look at me, I'm an expert in all these things, because I do feel that it's kind of like lived life experience and a little bit about statement reading ideas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's like you say, like the common sense thing. I think it's in the prequel video of the Handforth Paris Council. Is it Parish Council? Lost my word in there. But there is you get all the interruptions, people on their Zoom, whether it be their phone, the cuckoo clock at some stage as someone's clock going off, phones, ringtones, and you politely inform them that it might be Zoom etiquette to just to press the mute button.
I mean, but it's not unique to me. We've all seen it. I mean, I think in the book I make the point about, believe me, people can see how many times you've topped up your glass during the hour. But that's something I've noticed, And also, although I might, I'm having a cup of tea as I talk to you, I might have, a cup of tea and a biscuit or something if we were talking to each other. But I wouldn't sit down here with a plate of spaghetti or what I would call a meat dinner and eat it. And not only do they do that, but they do it with their face right up to the screen like this. I
Yeah.
think you must be able to see yourself. Why are you doing this? Switch your camera off.
I mean, is there anything that you sort of look back on the viral video that perhaps you didn't notice at the time, or just a moment that you look back and you just can't help but giggle at that certain part of the video? I mean, is there something that you sort of really, when is there a part of it that really
Yeah.
gets to you?
It's one that very few people pick out. Maybe it's like you. For me, it's a bit like, when you have those patterned tiles in the bathroom,
Yeah.
with, like, white mainly with a little squiggle on it.
Yeah.
And then you see a face or something in it, and having seen that, you can't unsee it. Forever that bathroom tile has a face in it. And for me, it's the bit where everything's settled down, and I turn to the three councillors that are left for them to be able to elect a chairman. And I start with saying something like, "You may now elect a chairman." But every time I hear it now, it comes across as, "You may now kiss the bride." There's just something about the tone, how I say it. That's all I can hear.
That's brilliant. I know. No, I've never clocked on that before. I'm gonna have to watch it back
But when
now.
you hear it now, and I haven't done it the same way as I've done it on the video. I can't remember quite how I do
Yeah.
it. Every time I hear it, it just sounds like that's what I'm going to say.
See, my favourite bit, I think a few people have noticed it, but I've always wondered who said it, was right at the start of the video where Mr. Tolver says, "When do we plan to start?" And there is a little mutter of someone not too pleasant by Brian's introduction, I suppose, to this meeting. And there's that little whisper of, expletive, is a moment that I can't help but not laugh at every time. And it's right at the start of the video.
Yeah, and that's Alan.
Oh, is it Alan?
I think I made some comments about it. I just one word comment, because I think just shocked that he said it.
Yeah.
Because, and as we said earlier, I expected their behaviour to be bad.
Mm.
I did not expect anybody to behave.
No, it was just insane. Insane is the only word I can use. And I think, what would you say to any members of any community out there that are perhaps concerned about the way their councils run, or want to do something locally where they feel that they're not being treated fairly or are met with reluctance? I mean, what would you say are the channels for them to go down?
Although not everybody realises it, because very often parish council elections are uncontested. So you might have 10 seats and you only have 10 people stand for them, so it looks like there's no election. Yeah, it's only when you've got, say, 10 seats and 11 people that you'll have an election. So people often think there isn't an election and that council is there until they walk away from it, but that's not true. You are only ever stuck with a council for a maximum of 4 years, and after 4 years maximum, there'll be a cycle of elections. So if you feel that your council isn't doing what your community needs it to do, then make sure you have other people standing for election. In there and change it. Because what I try to convey to people is that actually a parish council is an enormously powerful tool. Give it to the wrong people, and they may do the wrong things with it, or they may do nothing with it. But as a precepting authority, a tax-raising body, it means that it can ensure that everybody in that community, whether it's the people who turn up and man the stalls or bake cakes or whatever, not only those people contribute, but all those people that don't do those kind of things can contribute through their council tax to whatever you're trying to achieve in the village or the town. And I think that's hugely important. I mean, I had a career break when I had children, but as soon as the children started to get older, I went back to work. So I've always felt, how do I put it? I'll exaggerate, cash rich and time poor. Never really felt rich, but my time was more precious to me than my money, because now there was two of us working. And I always felt guilty that I wasn't able to give the time in the community that, that I had done when I wasn't working. So being able to financially contribute, eases my conscience. And I'm not the only person living in a community that feels that way.
Yeah.
So, using a parish council as a tool, as a mechanism for community engagement and for community delivery is really powerful. And if yours isn't working for you, get in there and change it.
Well, Jackie, it's been amazing talking to you today. As we approach the year anniversary, I hope the threat of subpoenas and legal action stop for Mr. Brereton. I don't think they're going to go anywhere particularly, but
They cause pain. I mean, that's one of the things that, I'm reasonably broad-shouldered, but I am human.
Oh yeah.
And I get tired, and I get kind of like feel that like people do the world's against me, etc. And when you're in a darker place and one of Brereton's letters appears on your email, it does have a material effect. And that's why I so strongly about how we must be able to stop that for other people, because I think I'm one of the stronger people using communications like that. And only 3 weeks ago had another one from the Information Commissioner, with Aled Brereton complaining that his data had been how do we announce it? His personal data had been not violated, word like that, and that I had not handled his data properly. And so you get a formal letter from the Information Commissioner, and when you get that, if you're a law-abiding person, you take notice.
Mm-hmm.
You then have to read it, you question yourself again, you write the rebuttal, and you wait. Because, of course, the last thing you want to hear is the Information Commissioner saying, actually, he has a point. But fortunately, the letter comes back, thank you, no breach found.
Mm-hmm. I think he's just kind of got to look at himself and know the attention that he put on himself is his own doing, to be honest.
Good luck with that.
Some people just can't admit they were wrong, can they? Well, Jackie, a very Merry Christmas to you and your family. I hope you have a lovely time. I'm gonna be sure to check out firstly this, watch back the video and hear about this. You may now I'm going to do that as soon as we finish. And I am going to check out your book. You now have the authority here by you. I look forward to reading it. And thanks again for coming on, and keep in touch.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers, Jackie. Thank you.